The offer. The wind was dry on the battle-worn plains of Callus 9. Smoke still rose from the burned wrecks of war machines. In the middle of the broken field, a human stood facing an alien warrior. She was tall, strong, and sharp-eyed. Her skin had a faint silver glow under the red sun, and her long braids moved like whips in the wind. Her name was Valara, a commander of the Zerani Bladeborn. Her hand held a blaster, aimed straight at the human's chest. The human didn't move. His name was Jace. No armor, no weapons. Just a torn shirt, dusty boots, and a strange calm in his eyes. He had once fought in the war. He had once saved Valara's life. But now, the war was over. And he stood before her, asking something no other creature in the galaxy would dare say to a Zerani warrior. "Will you be my mate?" he said softly. Gasps came from her soldiers behind her. Valara's fingers twitched on the trigger. Her heart didn't move, but something inside her chest did. This was no joke, no trick. Jace meant it. He stood there, calm, knowing she could kill him in a breath. "You speak madness," she said coldly. "You are human. I am Zerani. We are not made to join." Jace smiled. "Maybe. But I've seen your strength. I've seen your soul. And I'm still here." His voice was steady, his words clear. But Valara felt heat rise in her chest. Zerani warriors were trained from birth to reject emotion. Feelings were chains. Love was weakness. And yet, her finger squeezed the trigger. A bright bolt of energy shot out. It hit his hand, just below the wrist. The force knocked him back, one step. Blood came fast, dripping onto the sand. He didn't fall. He didn't cry out. He just looked down at his hand, then looked up at her, and smiled. Valara blinked. That smile. What did it mean? Was it madness? Pride? Or something more dangerous? "Why didn't you dodge?" she asked, her voice low, confused. Jace looked at her. "Because I trust you." The silence that followed was deep. Even the wind seemed to stop. Valara's second-in-command Tauren stepped forward. "Commander, give the order. We can end him. Now the others watch." She raised a hand, stopping him. Her eyes were locked on Jace. He stood there with his burned, bleeding hand, still calm. "You do not fear pain," she said. He nodded. "Pain is real, but some things are worth more." Valara turned, walking a slow circle around him. Her mind raced. What was his plan? No one from his kind had ever shown such boldness before. Not to her. Not to a Zerani. "What do you want from me, human?" she asked. "Nothing you don't choose," he said. "But I've seen your people. They fight. They kill. But you, Valara, you saved me once when your own soldiers said leave me. You chose to help me. That means something." Her jaw tightened. She remembered that moment. His ship had crashed in the middle of Zerani territory. He should have been executed on sight. But he was injured, unarmed, bleeding, and something in his eyes had made her stop. He had thanked her, not with words, but with a look she had never forgotten. Now, here he was, standing before her again, not begging, not tricking, just asking, and smiling. Even after being shot, Tauren stepped closer. "This is a game, Commander, a human trap. I say we finish him before it spreads." "Spreads?" Jace asked. "What spreads?" "Hope," Valara whispered before she could stop herself. She looked at Jace again. His hand was shaking now. "Blood loss." Still, he didn't show pain. "You know what they'll say about this," she said. He nodded. "That I'm foolish, or brave, or maybe both." "You risked your life," she said. "For this? For you," he answered. The words struck her harder than the shot she had fired. Behind her, her soldiers whispered. Some wanted blood. Others watched with wide eyes. She took a breath. Her hand lowered the blaster. "I don't understand you," she said, "but I won't kill you today." Jace smiled again. "Then it's a start." She turned away, her mind heavy. She didn't say yes, but she didn't say no either. And for a Zerani warrior, that was more than anyone expected. And as Jace stood there, his blood on the sand, his heart beat stronger than ever, because deep inside he saw it in her eyes. She didn't shoot to kill, she shot to test, and now the game had truly begun. Blood and silence, the campfires burned low that night, their flames dancing weakly in the dark wind of Callus 9. Somewhere beyond the tents, wild creatures howled. But no one in the Zerani camp moved. They were too busy, whispering. "He didn't move," said one. "He smiled when she shot him," said another. But Valara said nothing. She sat alone, just outside her command tent, sharpening her blade over and over again. The metal hissed with each stroke. Her face was still and cold, but her eyes kept drifting to the blood-stained sand where Jace had stood. He was alive, wounded, yes, but alive, and still. He had smiled. Her hand froze mid-sharpen. Her mind replayed the moment again. The shot, the blood, the look in his eyes. It wasn't fear. It wasn't madness. It was something worse. It was truth. No mask. No trick. Just a strange, deep truth in his eyes. And it scared her. Not far away, Jace sat on a medical table inside a small supply room. The Zerani healer, an old male with dark scars down his face, was wrapping his hand in silence. "This will hurt," the healer said in a flat voice. Jace smiled. "Hurts already." "You are human," the healer muttered, tying the wrap tightly. "You should not be here," Jace raised an eyebrow. "Yet here I am." The healer looked up, his eyes tired. "She didn't kill you, that means something." Jace nodded. "It does." The healer shook his head and left without another word. Jace sat alone in the silence. He looked down at his hand. Swollen, burnt, red. It still throbbed. He moved, his fingers slowly, testing the nerves. A shot meant to warn, not to end. He had gambled everything on that, and she had passed the test too. Torrens stormed into Valara's tent, his face dark with fury. "Commander, he's a risk. The humans are known for tricks, for lies. You've seen what they did during the border wars." Valara looked at him calm. "He had no weapon. He stood before me with nothing but words." "Words are dangerous," Torrens snapped, "especially from a human." She leaned back, her fingers brushing the old metal around her neck, a silent reminder of the battles she had won and the lives she had ended. "You think I don't know danger?" she said quietly. Torrens paused. "I think you're letting this human into your mind. Maybe even your heart." "That's not possible," she replied sharply. "I am Bladeborn." Torrens stepped closer. "Then act like one." The words hung between them like smoke. Valara's eyes narrowed. "Leave," she said. He didn't move. Now, he left. Later that night, Valara walked alone through the sleeping camp. The stars above were sharp and white like a million quiet eyes watching her. She found herself walking toward the supply tent without meaning to. She stopped at the entrance. Inside, Jace sat awake, his back to her, humming softly, an old Earth song. She didn't understand the words, but the sound pulled at something deep in her. He turned slowly. He had sensed her. She stepped inside. Silent. He didn't speak. He just raised his injured hand slightly, still bandaged. "It still hurts," he said finally. "But not more than losing your respect would have." She stared at him. "Why?" she asked. "Why risk your life to ask me that question? Do you not fear death?" He looked down for a moment, then met her eyes. "I do fear death," he said, "but I fear silence more." Silence? Yes, the silence that comes from never saying what you feel, from letting something real slip away because you were afraid. Her face stayed still, but her eyes betrayed her. They softened, just slightly. "You are strange, Jace," she said. "Your kind, you were made for fire and machines, not for hearts." He smiled. "Maybe, but we still have them." A long pause. Your people will never accept this, she whispered. Then we show them something they've never seen. He stood, slowly, carefully, and he bowed his head to her. Not as a soldier, not as a servant, but as someone offering something rare. Trust. She didn't speak, didn't reach out, but she didn't walk away either. In the stillness of that tent, in the deep hush of a galaxy still healing from war, two enemies stood under the same roof, not as rivals, but as something strange, something new. And outside, in the shadows, Torin watched, and his eyes burned with hate. The test the next morning, the sky over Callus 9 burned orange. Sharp winds carried the scent of rusted metal, scorched stone, and something colder. Doubt. In the Great Hall of Judgment, where Zirani warriors once swore oaths before warlords, Valara stood before the Council of Elders, 5 of them, ancient, weathered, and cold. Their eyes glowed faint blue beneath bone helmets, and their voices were deep with age and power. You did not kill the human, said Elder Saul, his voice like gravel. You did not imprison him. Instead, you let him speak. Valara stood, tall. He meant no harm, no harm. Elder Saul leaned forward. He asked to mate with one of our commanders, with you. This is not only shameful, it is dangerous. Elder Irna, the oldest of them all, raised one finger. Dangerous, yes, because you hesitated. If your heart has shifted, you are no longer pure. The word pure echoed in the chamber like a curse. I am loyal, Valara replied firmly. But I will not destroy someone who has done nothing wrong. The council whispered among themselves, their heads close. Then Irna spoke again. You say the human is brave? Fine. Let him prove it. He will face the trial of flame and steel. Valara's eyes narrowed. That trial is meant for Zirani initiates. It breaks most of them. Exactly, Irna said, her voice calm. If he survives, we will reconsider his fate. If not, the problem ends. Valara turned sharply and left without another word. Across the camp, Jace was sitting under a half-broken shelter, his injured hand cradled in his lap. He was watching the horizon when Valara approached, her steps slow, her eyes unreadable. They want you to face the trial, she said simply. He blinked. What's the trial? Fire. Pain. Endurance. It's meant to test if a warrior can survive both their fear and their own instincts. Sounds like fun, Jace said, smiling. She didn't return the smile. Most don't survive, she added. He looked at her closely. And what happens if I do? She looked away. Then, they will accept you. Maybe. Jace stood slowly, the pain in his hand clear on his face, but he still looked strong. I'll do it, he said, if that's what it takes. Why? She asked. Why keep walking toward death for this? He looked at her and said softly, because I see something in you that's worth walking toward. The next morning, Jace stood at the mouth of the trial grounds. The place was a ruined forge carved into the rock of an old volcano. Heat shimmered in the air and red cracks glowed underfoot. Around the edges stood Zirani warriors, including Valara, her face hard, her hands clenched behind her back. The council watched from above, silent. Jace stepped forward. First came the path of fire. He had to walk barefoot across burning coals while carrying the blade of silence on his back. He bit down hard, his teeth grinding, but he kept moving. Smoke rose from his feet. His skin blistered. He fell once, got up, fell again. On the third fall, the crowd whispered. They thought he would quit, but he didn't. He roared, not in pain, but in fury, and stood again, eyes locked with Valara's. She flinched. Next came the test of steel. A machine dropped from above. It swung long metal arms at him fast and without mercy. He had no armor, no weapon, only speed and instinct. He ducked, rolled, screamed as one blade scraped his side. Blood poured down his ribs. The crowd began to shout. Some cheered. Others called it madness. Valara couldn't look away. He fell again, crawling through the dust. "Stay down," someone yelled, but he pulled himself forward, dragging his own body across the rocks, toward the last gate, a door of fire that he had to open with his bare hands. Valara took one step forward. Her lips parted. "Don't do it," she whispered. But he did. His hands pressed into the heat, skin searing, smoke rising. And still, the door groaned open. When he stepped out, blackened, bleeding, shaking, the crowd fell into complete silence. Then, a single sound broke the air. Clap. Elder Irna stood and clapped twice. "He has survived," she said. "He is no longer just human. He is something more." Later, when Jace was resting in the healer's tent, Valara entered. He looked up at her, his face pale, sweat on his forehead. "Was that enough?" he asked. She walked to him and sat beside his bed. For a moment she didn't speak. Then she took his hand, the bandaged one, and held it gently. "You still smile?" she said softly. "Yeah," he whispered. "Because now they saw what I already knew." "What's that?" "That no one else in this galaxy has a heart like yours." Her breath caught in her throat. She didn't answer, but she didn't let go of his hand. And outside the tent, Torrin sharpened his blade, his eyes fixed on the entrance, and his heart, unlike Jace's, was full of only one thing: revenge. The breaking point. The stars above Callus 9 flickered behind clouds of ash. Inside the command tower, Valara stood alone by the high window. Her reflection in the glass looked like a ghost, the face of a warrior who had never been questioned, never been torn in two. Until now. Below her, the camp was alive with murmurs. The human had survived, not just survived, endured. Without armor, without help, without a scream. He had bled for her, and now the council's approval meant very little, because the whispers had started. She is weak. The human has her under a spell. This is the beginning of the end. She closed her eyes. For the first time in years, her heart didn't feel like a blade. It felt heavy. A soft knock came. Then her aide entered with a sealed message. Crystal. No sound, just a nod and retreat. Valara held the crystal to her comm device. The message played in her ear alone, the cold voice of Elder Irna. "Commander Valara, the Council does not trust your judgment. Your feelings for the human cloud your duty. Therefore, once the human recovers, he will be executed. Quietly. This is final. Do not interfere." The message ended with a single pulse of sound. Valara didn't move, not for a long time. When she did, she turned away from the window, her jaw tight, her hand clenched. They were going to kill him. After everything. Not because he failed. Not because he threatened them. But because he had proven them wrong. Because he had shown the galaxy that something else was possible. That night she walked to the recovery tent without her guards. The guards would report her if they saw what she was about to do. Jace was half asleep, his chest rising and falling slowly under a thin blanket. The wounds from the trial were still healing. His face was pale but calm. "Valara," he said softly, opening one eye. "You look like the sky is falling." She sat beside him, trying to steady her breath. "They're going to kill you," she whispered. He blinked. "What?" "Not now. They'll wait until you heal. They say it will be quiet. A painless execution, a clean ending. No one will ask questions." Jay stared at her for a moment, then gave a slow nod. "I figured they might," he said. She looked at him, stunned. "You knew?" He shrugged gently. "They're afraid. Afraid of change. Afraid of you choosing me." Valara stood. She couldn't sit still. Her hands trembled. "You don't understand," she said. "If I move against them, I lose everything. My command, my honor, my life, and me," he said softly. She stopped. He sat up, grimacing through the pain. "I'm not asking you to fight them. Not unless you choose to. How can you still smile? She said. After everything they've done? Jace looked at her with tired but clear eyes. Because smiling is the last weapon they don't understand. That answer broke something inside her. She walked to him and knelt, lowering her head. Not in defeat, not in surrender, but in choice. If I protect you, she whispered, I will be hunted, betrayed by my own kind. Then we run. He said, I have nowhere to go. He reached out and touched her hand. You have me. She didn't cry. She had forgotten how. But in that moment, for the first time in her warrior life, she wished she could. Outside, Torin watched them through the slit of the tent. He had followed her, as always. And now, he had seen enough. He turned and walked straight to the council's chamber. She will betray you, he said. I can prove it. Elder Saul leaned forward. What are you asking for? Torin's eyes gleamed with cold fire. Give me the order. Let me deliver the final blow, publicly, before the entire army. Elder Irna nodded slowly. Do it at dawn. Back in the tent, Jace held Valara's hand, both of them silent. We have until sunrise, she said. Then we make those hours count, he whispered. Valara stood and drew her blade. Not for practice, not for show, but because the war had never really ended and now it was beginning again. Betrayal, the sun did not rise gently that day. It tore across the sky like fire breaking through glass. Callus 9 was quiet. Too quiet. Even the wind held its breath. In the central square of the Zyrani war camp, hundreds of warriors had gathered. Most thought they came to witness a ceremony. Some knew the truth. Torin stood in the center, armored in ceremonial black, with a long blade resting against his shoulder. His face was hard, proud, victorious before the fight even began. Next to him, Jace stood in silence, unarmed, unchained, surrounded by guards. He looked up toward the high balcony where Valara was expected to stand. But she was not there. Torin raised his voice deep and cold. This human, though brave in trial, is still a danger to our unity. The council has chosen justice, and Commander Valara has agreed to pass the sentence. A murmur ran through the crowd. And then Valara appeared, not on the balcony, but walking slowly through the square. Her armor was not ceremonial. It was war-grade, scratched, scarred, and deadly. Her eyes locked on Torin with no emotion. Torin smiled tightly. You're late. I was saying goodbye to the part of me that used to believe in you, she said. Torin's smile faded. We had a plan. We were going to cleanse the ranks, keep our bloodline pure. Now you stand for him? Valara stepped between Torin and Jace. I stand for the truth. The crowd was tense, watching, waiting. Torin's voice dropped. Then finish it. Kill him now and we'll let this be. She looked at Jace. He didn't beg. He didn't speak. He just nodded. Once. Do what you have to. She turned slowly, raised her blade, held it in both hands, and then threw it. Not at Jace, but at Torin. The crowd gasped. Torin barely blocked the strike. The blade skidded across his shoulder, leaving a deep red line. The square exploded into chaos. Guards ran. Soldiers shouted. Half drew weapons, half stood frozen. Torin roared and charged, pulling his own blade in a clean arc. Valara blocked him with her forearm, metal slamming against metal. Sparks flew. You choose him? Torin spat. I choose freedom, she snapped. Jace dodged a guard and picked up a broken spear. It wasn't much, but it was something. Valara, he shouted, tossing her the handle. She caught it, spun, and slammed the blunt edge into Torin's gut. He staggered but didn't fall. Around them, a few soldiers began turning on each other. Some tried to protect the command tent. Others tried to seize Jace. Fall back, Valara shouted, grabbing Jace's arm. We run now. They sprinted across the edge of the square, ducking behind wreckage and overturned machines. Blaster shots flew overhead. Torin shouted from behind. They won't make it past the gates. But Valara wasn't listening. She was thinking about the back tunnels, the ones carved into the mountain's edge, secret, old, and half-forgotten. They reached the entrance just as a soldier spotted them. Stop! By order of the council, Valara spun, dropped low, and swept his legs with her spear. He hit the ground hard. Jace grabbed the blaster from his belt and fired a warning shot into the air. The tunnel door hissed shut behind them, and for a few minutes only silence followed. They didn't speak until they were deep underground, the stone walls echoing with each step. You threw your blade, Jace said quietly. Valara looked at him. The only way to stop a lie is with a louder truth. And now we're fugitives. She nodded. Yes. He reached for her hand. Then we run together. She squeezed it gently. No. We fight together. Back at the surface, Torin knelt before Elder Irna. Blood ran down his face, his pride in ruins. They escaped. He hissed. But not far. Irna's voice was calm. You know the tunnels? I do. Then burn them out. Torin rose, eyes burning. If she won't die by the law, she'll die by the flame. Beneath the earth, Jace and Valara ran through the ancient paths of the Zirani dead. Together, outlaws, but alive, and something stronger than war had begun to grow in the dark between them. Not just trust, not just love, but the unshakable will to survive, side by side. Fugitives, the tunnels beneath Callus 9 were old, older than even the elders remembered. Carved by the hands of Zirani ancestors long before machines, long before war. They twisted deep under the mountains like veins beneath cracked skin. No lights, no maps. Only stone, breath, and footsteps. Valara moved first, her blade drawn, ears sharp for the sound of pursuit. Behind her, Jace stumbled but followed, his wounds raw, his breathing heavy. Stop, she said softly. They pressed against the cold wall. Silence. Just the hum of the planet above them. We're clear for now, she whispered. Jace slid down to sit, leaning his head against the rock. I've never been this tired. Valara looked at him. In this dim light, with dirt across his face and blood soaking through his clothes, he didn't look like a warrior. He looked human, fragile, yet he was still alive. I don't understand you, she said quietly. He chuckled dryly. You're not the first. You knew they'd come for you. You knew they'd try to make me choose. Jace opened his eyes. I hoped you'd choose you. She tilted her head. What do you mean? Not me, not them, just your own truth. She sat beside him, the heat of his body brushing hers. It was strange how warm humans were, like small suns that didn't know they were burning. I never thought I'd betray my people, she said. You didn't, Jace said. You just stopped betraying yourself. Those words cut deeper than any blade. Valara looked away. I was trained to obey, trained to lead, but never to feel. Feel now, Jace said. What if it's wrong? Then we'll be wrong together. She looked at him again. His eyes weren't just tired. They were kind, not because he was weak, but because he chose to be. Then she leaned in slowly. Her forehead touched his. No words, no kiss, just breath shared between two broken pieces of different worlds. But that moment didn't last. Low rumble filled the tunnel, then fire. Torin had found the entrance. His troops poured fuel into the cracks and set it alight. Ancient rock screamed under the heat. Smoke rushed through the tunnels like a beast hunting prey. Valara grabbed Jace's arm. Move! They ran. The tunnel narrowed. The fire chased their steps. Jace coughed hard, stumbling. His vision blurred. I can't. Valara grabbed him by the waist, hauling him up. Yes, you can. He tried. Forced his legs to obey. They reached an opening, a small shaft leading upward. Above them, a crack of daylight. Go, Valara shouted. You first. Don't argue. He climbed. hand over hand, foot over burning foot. She followed, the fire roaring behind her. They burst out of the mountain like bullets. Air, light, sky, but no time to rest. Torin's squad was already above, waiting. Valara raised her blade. "Run to the ridge," she shouted at Jace. "Not without you. Do it!" He ran. She turned to face them. 4 soldiers, all Zirani, all loyal. They circled her. Torin stepped out last, his armor blackened, his face twisted in rage. "You're outnumbered," he said. "I always was," she replied. They rushed her. But Valara wasn't fighting to win. She was fighting to stall. Her blade sang through the air, sharp and angry. She moved like a storm trapped in flesh. Meanwhile, Jace reached the ridge. He looked back. Torin raised his blaster. Valara was distracted. "No!" Jace screamed. And then he jumped, off the ridge, down the slope, full speed, toward her. He hit the ground hard, rolled, grabbed a fallen weapon, not his style, not his training, but he didn't stop. He charged Torin from behind. The blast fired. Too late. Jace tackled him into the dirt. The gun flew from Torin's hand. The other soldiers hesitated, shocked. Valara spun, sliced the nearest soldiers, blade in half. 2 turned and ran. Only 1 stayed, but now it was 3 against 1. Torin stood again, blood on his lip. "You protect him like a mate," he spat. Valara's eyes burned. "He's worth more than your whole army." They fought again, this time together. Side by side, Valara's blade, Jace's fists. The final soldier fell, and Torin stood alone. His pride gone, his power broken. But still, he lifted his blade. "You think this is the end?" he said. Valara pointed hers at his throat. "No. This is the beginning." Later, in the cave where they hid again, Jace sat by the fire, breathing. Hard. Valara cleaned his wounds in silence. "You ran toward danger," she said. He looked at her. "You would have done the same." She smiled, a real smile, then leaned closer. "Maybe you are Zirani after all." He laughed. "No," he said, "but maybe we're both something new." And for the first time, in all the years of war, neither of them felt alone. The vow the rain came without warning. It fell over Callus 9 like soft forgiveness washing blood and ash from the stone. Thunder rolled in the far distance as if the planet itself was breathing after a long silence. In a small cave lit only by firelight, Valara sat beside Jace. His back rested against the wall, his shirt torn, skin covered in bruises, and his hands still shaking from battle. Outside, the forest whispered. They were far from the war camps now, far from Torin, far from the council. Fugitives, yes, but finally free. And yet, neither of them spoke. Not yet. Valara stared at the fire, the shadows dancing across her armor. She had thrown away everything, her title, her command, the trust of her people, for a human, for him, and he had thrown away his life for her again and again without ever asking for anything back. "I still don't understand you," she said, her voice low. Jace looked at her, his lips twitching into a faint smile. "That's okay. Sometimes I don't understand me either." She shook her head. "You should be angry. At me. At everything. You almost died 3 times in 3 days." "True," he said. "But I also saw you hesitate when you were ordered to kill me. And then I saw you fight your own people to protect me. I'll take that trade." She turned to face him fully. "You don't know what you've done," she said. "You've broken something in the Zirani. We were never meant to feel this deeply, or choose freely." Jace leaned forward, eyes locked on hers. "Maybe that's the point," he whispered. "Maybe we're supposed to break things, so something better can grow." Those words struck deep. Valara reached into her pack and pulled out a small blade. It was her old initiation knife, short, curved, ceremonial, only used once in a warrior's life, when making an unbreakable vow. "This blade," she said, has only one purpose. Jace took a breath. And what vow would you make? She held it out, point down. That I will walk beside you. Not behind, not above, not as commander, not as warrior, just as Valara. He stared at her, unmoving. That's a big vow, he said. Yes. She nodded. And it's yours, if you'll take it? Jace reached forward slowly, gently. He placed his hand over hers, pressing the blade between them. Then I make one too, he said. She waited. That wherever we go, whatever hunts us, whatever burns behind us, I'll never let go of what we are building. And what is that? She whispered. He smiled, something new. They sat like that for a while, hand over hand, blade between them, the fire crackling like a heartbeat. But far away, the council of elders burned in their own fear. News had spread. Not just that Valara had escaped with the human, but that several soldiers had defected after seeing the fight. Some spoke openly now, others in whispers. But the idea was born, and like all dangerous things, it could not be killed once it had taken root. Not with fire, not with law. Weeks passed, then months. Deep, in a forgotten world on the edge of charted space, Jace and Valara built something small. A camp, a garden, a home. Others came. A rogue healer, a Zirani pilot, a human translator with scars on his neck, outcasts, believers. They came not for orders, but for purpose. They followed not a flag, but a feeling, the strange, impossible truth that a human and a Zirani could love each other, fight together and not destroy the world in doing so, but maybe save it. And one night, as stars drifted quietly across the sky, Jace stood outside their new shelter, watching the sky. Valara joined him. She rested her head on his shoulder. "What are you thinking?" she asked. He smiled, slow and warm. "About the day you shot me." She smirked. "You smiled when it hit your hand. You looked like an idiot." "Yeah," he chuckled. "But it was the first time I knew. You'd never lie to me." Valara leaned into him, her breath soft. "I'll never shoot you again," she whispered. "Promise?" "No," she grinned. "But if I do, you'll deserve it." They laughed together under the stars, and far above them the galaxy turned. Old powers trembled. New stories began.